you, Tony. Good afternoon. It's a difficult session to be chairing after lunch when all the energy levels are going down and you've had all the ministers speak to you. So we'll do our best. But no discussion on value chains is complete without talking about the people who are at the core of it. We've been speaking about farmers and all that needs to happen around them, but we'd really like to spend a bit of time speaking about what it is in their own right as farmers, as laborers, that the issues they face, the solutions that we need to be working towards, and how different approaches can look at the labor and social issues in value chains. We've been hearing about how ASEAN is one of the fastest growing economies. It's growing at 5%. It's the 8th largest economy in the world, taken together collectively as a region, but we still have a number of people living in poverty. A large percentage of the population, about half the population of the region, depends on agriculture for its income, but also there is a large number of the farmers who constitute the 200 million hungry people in the region itself. So we have this dichotomy of increasing wealth and increasing security of incomes and food, but the farmers themselves being very poor. So what we want to do today is to look at farmers as people, and both as farmers, and we've spoken a lot during the day about smallholder farmers, how do you increase their productivity, their profitability, their environmental sustainability, and also their incomes. But also I'd like to turn the attention to the laborers who work on farms, whether they're big plantations like palm oil and rubber, or indeed they're smallholder farms where they provide services around planting or harvesting or weeding. A few points that I'd like to share with you before I introduce our panel and hand over to them is to keep in mind the different forms of labor and farmers that they are. There is, of course, the farmers that we've spoken about, but also to think about the women farmers, the role of women, and we had a few people touch on that. 50% of labor on farms is done by women, going up to about 70% in Asia and Africa. What do we need to do differently to empower them and make the social construct around the women in these communities stronger? We've not really spoken about child labor, another big social issue that comes up on farm. Safety of children, ensuring that they have education while supporting family farms, ensuring that they're not using machinery or any instrument that might be dangerous to them. Health and safety, big issues that we need to contend with while also ensuring that there's social equity in the system. Seasonal migrant laborers, you have a lot of or ethnic minorities who provide labor, moving through different farming systems, providing labor but not having any security of their employment themselves, or earning very low wages and being really the very poor communities that need further support from us. So there are many forms of these kind of issues that we need to be dealing with it, and I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you to our distinguished panel who will help us navigate these waters and share their experience with us. So starting with my immediate left, I'm very pleased to introduce Nguyen Quang Vinh, as we all know him, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He is the person to know in Vietnam. He not only is Deputy Secretary of the VCCI, Secretary General of the VCCI, he also is the Chair of the Vietnam Business Council for Sustainable Development. He's also Director General of the Office of Business Sustainable Development and runs the Global Compact. So wearing many hats, but here to share his experience of how some of these big platforms can support social labor issues in value chains and push companies to better standards. Next to him is Miguel Mendez. He's Country Director of SNV Vietnam. SNV is one of those unique organizations that supports a lot of programs that are run by companies and donor agencies and other organizations to really get the action on the ground, to take that theory that we talk about to having an impact. And he's been leading the work in Vietnam since 2013, but has 20 years of experience to draw on, which we hope he will share with us. And last but not the least, we have Dr. Darrel Weber, who is the Secretary General of the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil. I think, Darrel, it's safe to say that you've spent most of your working career looking at the issue of palm oil, both from inside companies, but also at WWF, and very recently at very senior levels with the RSPO. So hopefully you can tell us how certification helps. So without further ado, I'm going to ask our panelists to share with us a 2 or 3 minutes worth of their top line ideas and shed some light on this important topic. Vinh, over to you.
Right, thank you, Kavita. I think that it's good to have a good opportunity to share with you all today about the food security and sustainable agriculture. I think it's the future of Vietnam, and we depend a lot on the sustainable development of the agriculture of Vietnam. And you may know that more than 60% of the population of Vietnam, or especially the labor force, engaging with the agriculture, and 45% of them are untrained. So the low, productivity of the agriculture compared to other sector like manufacturing or service sector, I think is one of our concern. And the one thing, and the other thing is that now we are talking about a lot about the corporate sustainability, the corporate social responsibility. It's about all the way, on the company, and including small and medium-sized enterprises, or small producer, cooperating to create value. So that one of the concern of Vietnam is how to enhance the productivity of the small scale or small producer in Vietnam in the value chain. And the second one is the degree to which the small and medium-sized enterprises in Vietnam and farmers to apply the technology in the production, daily production work, and the capital, and the market, and the brand name of the Vietnamese agricultural products are also one of the concerns. But more or less, it all impact, have a social impact in Vietnam. That's why the social impact, or doing business with the poor, that we are working with SMEs. So Miguel is going to tell you more about that, so that we can not only solve the problem of the market, the outcome for the Vietnamese agricultural products, but also how to maintain the social progress and the social security. So that's why we work very hard at the Vietnam Business Council for Sustainable Development, and we work with international players like UN Global Compact, and other UN family members like UNICEF, not only to focus on the key issue like the productivity of and the labor issue of in Vietnam, but also how to try to harmonize, how to secure the equitable benefits in the partnership between small and medium-sized enterprises and the multinational corporation in Vietnam. So I'm over time, so I can hand over to my friend who.
Well, thank you, Nguyen. I think that's a really important point. And in addition, to say it's not just labor and smallholder farmers at the production level, but it's also SMEs through the value chain. And how do you bring a lot more value by getting the small and medium-sized enterprises and ensuring that there's equitable distribution of the wealth created across all those players. So thank you very much for that, Vinh. Hopefully we can pick that up. Miguel.
Okay, thank you, Vinh, for the introduction. Thank you, Kavita, for the introduction as well. For those who don't know who is SMV, so SMV is an international organization which is originally from Netherlands, and we work now for 50 years in more than 30 countries in the world, what we call designing and implementing market-based solutions to overcome poverty. It means increasing the income of low-income population and also supporting them to have access to a suitable basic services like wash and renewable energy. Saying this, we have been working in 3 sectors mainly. which one is agriculture, which is the main focus of today's discussions. The other one is renewable energy, and the third one is water and sanitation and hygiene. And talking about agriculture and the linkage with labor and social impact, I think most of the people in developing countries has a direct attached to agriculture sector, and most of the populations really depends or relies on the income that can be achieved for the agriculture production. And in this case, we have many challenges regarding labor. Normally, the most of the population involved in the agriculture sector has low skills. So productivity is low, quality is normally low. That means that we have problems to access to really good markets. On top of this, it means that at the end, the income that is generated in the agriculture sector is less compared to the effort that is put in this. So just in the case of Vietnam, around 70% of the population rely on agriculture, but at the end, only 20% of GDP is created by the agriculture sector. So this leads to, at the end, very bad conditions in the rural areas. For instance, it leads also to problems on low rate for the farmers or for the agricultural workers. Leads to problems on hard working hours, no insurance, no benefits, and of course the insecurity of the income is high. And on top of this, we have problems with some kind of, for instance, migration workers, which leads to very more deep problems for the countries. And also this is related to ethnicity. Yeah, we talk about in general the problem of the agriculture sectors related to low productivity, low rates, very hard working conditions, affect the whole of the population. But these problems are more deep in the ethnic minorities and also in the women at the end. So all these challenges make also a big opportunity for organizations like us to work and on this. And what SMV has been doing in the last years is to attack or to deal with these issues. We have been working, as I told you before, on designing and implementing what we call market-based solutions. And it means that we look at the market. It means also that we look at more inclusive approach. And then we develop, together with the World Business for Sustainable Development, the inclusive business model, which in the case of Vietnam, we are implementing it together with the VCCI, in which we have a large program in which we are impacting almost millions of people in Vietnam, not only in the agriculture sector, but also in other sectors like wash and also in what we call renewable energy sector. So this is just one big example, but specifically we have been developing this also using some kind of technologies or some kind of tools in the market. So in this case, we link a lot our work with what we call certifications, like RSPO, like is promoted here by Darrel. But also we have been working especially in the coffee sector with certifications like WOODS, 4C, Rainforest Alliance, and others, which take into account all these issues of labor and impact on ethnic minorities, and how to reduce it and avoid it.
Thank you, Miguel. So very quickly, you didn't mention child labor. Is that not an issue in Vietnam?
Of course, this is an issue, I think, in the whole agriculture sector. And for instance, you know, in some cases, this problem is also assumed by the government. I am originally from Honduras, which is a country in which we produce a lot of coffee. And I remember that in one town near my family town, the schools, they changed the calendar, the academic calendar, in order to ensure that the boys can go with the parents to work in the harvest. So it's, you know, it's very complicated. And in this case, we need to take account of this, and in our work as SMV, we look a lot at the Global Compact principle, for instance, which has, I think, 3 or 4 of the principles are related to labor. And also we work with the performance standard from the IFC, which has a specific standard, which is the number 2, which is related to labor, and of course how to work with the companies to ensure that labor, and especially child labor, is taken into account, and we ensure that this is not happening, affecting the people.
Thank you. Well, Darrel, that sets you up perfectly. We've got a mention of certification and the role that can play in ensuring labor and social rights.
Thank you, Kavita. Thanks, Miguel, for setting me up nicely. So, Kavita, in her meticulous way, sent us an email on, you know, we've got 4 minutes, and you need to address. She would like us to address certain points. So I'll stick through to that instruction.
Well, someone listens to me, Darrel.
4 minutes. So I'll cover 4 points in 4 minutes. First point: who is RSPO? RSPO is a multi-stakeholder initiative. We are an international organization formed in 2004, and our vision is to transform markets so that the production of palm oil is sustainable, and we want to encourage procurement of sustainable palm oil in all markets. We are made up of 2,000 members, more than 2,000 members from more than 70 countries around the world. And our membership includes 7 stakeholder groups, which are producers, processors and traders, manufacturers, retailers, the bankers who finance all that, environmental NGOs and social NGOs. So 7 stakeholder groups in this 2,000 plus member body. We produce a standard, and that standard is supposed to certify that the palm oil produced is legal, is environmentally appropriate, is socially beneficial, and finally, and most importantly, is profitable. So today, since 2000, we've certified products since 2008, and today 20% of global palm oil is certified according to the RSPO standard. So that's the RSPO. Now, the second point I'd like to talk about is about the characteristics of what the modern supply chain is today. What I can say to that is farms are getting larger. People are consolidating farms. The average size of farm has grown quite significantly in the last 2 decades. More and more companies are going towards vertical integration. Some are going more downstream, and in fact some downstream companies are going upstream. We see that a lot. We see, especially in India and China, companies who are in the downstream side of the business are now moving upstream to control their supply base. We see also that there's still in the medium future, in the foreseeable future, an over-reliance on cheap and abundant labor. We see that too. We also see that supply chains are becoming more and more traceable, mainly because consumers want to know what's behind the stuff they consume, and also companies want to manage risk. So we see that too in today's modern agriculture supply chain, value chain. And lastly, as Miguel pointed out, there are more and more instruments out there to put in place standards across supply chains to ensure that supply chains are clear of, say, deforestation, child labor, etc., etc. Now, those are the characteristics. In the last 2 minutes, I'm going to cover what are the positive impacts and the negative impacts of these modern supply chains. On the positive front, we see that wages are increasing in the rural areas. More stable employment, more than than there was if you were using traditional agriculture. Better rural infrastructure. And indeed, rural poverty is more or less going to be alleviated through agriculture in rural areas. We see that as a positive. On the negative aspects, cheap and abundant labor. I think as farming becomes more industrialized, this issue of cheap and abundant labor has to be addressed. In many sectors, including the palm oil sector, especially in Malaysia, who is very reliant on foreign labor, the issues of cheap and abundant labor come in many ways. Number one, because it's cheap and abundant, safety is not really an issue. Just a point, I just got some statistics to show that at least in some countries in ASEAN, the fatality rate on average in ASEAN is coming down, but in agriculture it's still way up there, double the national average, and in fact increasing. We also see the issue of manipulation by contractors, labor contractors, who switch contracts when recruiting in a foreign country, say Bangladesh, they switch contracts and misrepresent the actual employer at the recruitment country. We also see the issue of foreign workers' rights. The rights to, freedom of movement is an issue. Freedom of association is also another issue. And these are some of the negative aspects of the modern agriculture value chain. Now, those I mentioned are what I see today in the developing world. In the developed world is a different story. We can come to that later. I do think, however, that for the long term, agriculture sector must move towards mechanization and must drop its reliance on this cheap and abundant labor resource. Thank you.
Thank you, Darrel. So where do you think all those people will go?
Sorry?
Where will the smallholders and the laborers go if you have mechanization?
Well, you'll be surprised. People have this romantic view about smallholders. I've been around long enough to know that smallholders are not necessarily the best solution to natural resource management, the best solution to human rights protection. In fact, we have issues of smallholders actually employing forced labor. There are some industries that are so profitable that a smallholder can not work on the land anymore and employ others. So I think smallholders will become far more efficient. We know through certification, smallholders have improved their yields or improved their profitability by more than nearly 30%. We've certified 145,000 smallholders. It can be done. It's a long way to go, and I think because they become more efficient, their reliance on cheap and abundant labor will be less over time. The big industrial players really need to move up on mechanization. It's unfortunate that they have not, but because we have cheap and abundant labor in the region, this is the main issue.
Well, we're seeing a lot of those photographs on TV these days with everyone wanting to go to Malaysia and Indonesia and work there. So obviously it's a trend that we all need to be very aware of. So the technology is not working, unfortunately. So I'm going to ask a few questions of our panel because I'm very curious on a few certain aspects and then open it out to you. But since I have the ability to do so, let me just pose a question to all three of you. How do we scale up? So you've talked about best practices, SNV is looking at some projects on the ground, VBCSD is getting companies together, the certification agencies are reaching 145,000 smallholders, but we have 10 million smallholders in just ASEAN, 500 million in the world, and then a huge number of laborers. So how are we going to scale up? Where are you seeing those innovation best practices that we should all be trying to replicate? Start anyway, Miguel.
I think the market is a big driver for this. If we look at all this movement on certification, this is moved by the market, yeah, in general, or at least at the beginning. Market, as Darrel mentioned before, people want to know how even more, how the food that they consume is produced, who produces it, and which conditions. So in this case, market is really leading or driving this issue. So if we can link this to the market, then more the standards of and avoiding these issues of our childhood or cheap, of course, work, it will reduce through the mechanization, or through the implementation of better technologies, of new technologies, and how to become more efficient. So I think this could be very important. And so far, many of the certification which focus on environmental issues and social issues are driven by the market. Yeah, we can RSPO itself part of this. Yeah. So I think this is one thing. The other thing that is happening is people from rural areas, especially the young people, is moving to the urban areas. This is happening a lot in many countries. I'm not living so much time here in Vietnam, so I don't know the deep reality. But in Latin America, yeah, is a trend that more people is moving to the urban areas. And in this case, for instance, what happened is the farmers are becoming older, yeah. So then older and without the skill and without knowledge, so it could be a problem. So and some companies, for instance, in the coffee sector, they rely on this, and they try to develop some kind of initiative in which we work with them in involving the young people in the value chain, and to give them some skills and incentives to be part of that and stay there and work for the future, to make a life there.
And have you seen that succeed? Because we're all very concerned about migration into urban areas, especially from the youth. I mean, from a GrowAsia perspective, I think David was saying in the morning, we're looking at this phrase, a farmer by choice, that people should want to be farmers, I think, to the point of saying that they see it as being a productive, safe, employment with a future. So do you have any specific examples where you've seen, like, youth be engaged or be more part of the work that you're doing?
Thank you for the question again, because now will give you the opportunity to go further. As I told you before, the market is a driver. So, but also the vehicle for this is very important to engage with the companies who can link to the market. So in this specific experience I told you before, we work with a large company who sell coffee worldwide, and they of course are aware and are concerned about the value chain. And then in this case, we work with them in a specific inclusive business in which we support together with the company the farmers, the young people, to stay in the land and give them the whole skills and incentive to stay there and work with the foreigners. And more important is to give them the skills to become more productive and to increase the income, because it's very difficult to work with one rural farmer who has 60, 65 or 70 years old and try to introduce him new technologies, new ways to think, and the new demands of the market. So in this case, we have been on this. Of course, the way to scale it is to do it in massively. And talking about the market, all this concern about how the food is produced is being held or driven by the market in the developed countries. But most of our food is consumed in the developing countries. So we need to increase also the awareness of our local markets to start to push for this. Otherwise, it will continue as it is.
Thank you, Miguel. I'm going to turn to you, Darrel, because you're the link between the farm and the consumer.
Yeah. Well, not me, but the organization I lead. No, just on the topic of scaling up, this is something that I go to sleep thinking about, and I wake up dreaming about sometimes, daydreaming. We have definitely, as a certification organization on sustainability, sustainable palm oil, we have achieved some impact. We have, enough data to show that we have positive impact on the ground. People have increased their profits, natural resources are better protected, and the people surrounding the developments are usually benefit from the development. Now, however, the impacts are not at a scale that I'm particularly proud of. Mm-hmm. I think we can do much more. And I think it's about time that a certification standard like ours, a scheme like ours, need to think beyond certification of a management unit. So the RSPO has started to embark on thinking along the lines of jurisdictional certification. Mm-hmm. So we have, just recently, I just came back from Spain, where the governor of Central Kalimantan has announced that all of palm oil in Central Kalimantan will be produced according to the RSPO standard at a certain date, by a certain date. A Malaysian state in Sabah, a Malaysian state, has also made that declaration, I think last month. So that's scaling up. That brings in local government. That brings in a government who are very close to the ground, not at a federal level, but at a subnational level. And we think that's something that we are really looking forward to, because we want to bring in more stakeholders on board on a sustainable path. And the only way to do it is to approach it on a landscape level or on a jurisdiction level, bringing in governments on board, because they have access to policies. They can do a far better job than us on extension services. But more importantly, it's a recognition that the global supply chain demands a certain level of performance. And these jurisdictions understand that, and therefore not necessarily do this because they think it's a great idea. They do this because it's an economic prerogative for them. So that's why I think jurisdictions approach certification is the next wave, I think. Now, the other innovation to scale up is, well, the other tool I think that can help scale up is sustainable consumption. That's outlined in what is to be the new Sustainable Development Goals. I think the two have to go hand in hand, production and consumption. Today, we produce, as I said, 20% of global palm oil that is certified according to the RSPO, but only half of that is taken up. So we need the markets to pull this sustainable supply chain. There is no use pushing any chain, much less a supply chain. You should be pulling it, and I appeal to the markets out here who are represented here to pull it. Aid agencies, development agencies, I wish allocate half of their resources on promoting sustainable production and as well as promoting sustainable consumption. Because if you make the link, it's far better use of your resource, I think. And you should put equal attention on the procurement part.
And Darrel, say a little more about how the extra benefit of certification, which comes at a premium cost, is shared down the value chain.
It's a fabulous question that I get asked all the time, and we've got enough to show. When sometimes people think about the bottom line, they always talk about a top line, which is revenue, which is the premium prices they get, right? When in actual fact, nobody really looks at the bottom line. They just look at the top line, which is revenue. The bottom line is made up of revenue and cost. Now we know, for example, with smallholders, cost is reduced because of certification, mainly because they get more efficient, they manage their input better, their yields are increasing, right? So they become more efficient and their bottom line improves. We've got research done by a Malaysian university, a Thai university, and an Indonesian university who did baseline studies for smallholders before and after, and they've seen at least, on average, if I recall correct, 27% increase in the bottom line. So that's an improvement in the bottom line. Now I have to admit, on the top line, premiums will only be available to the first movers in the market, usually. And once it becomes a commodity, once it moves from a niche product to a mainstream product, which is what our ambition is, you will lose that premium. But people also forget that there are premium markets. So some people expect that they get a premium on top of being in a premium market. I think accessibility to premium markets really today depends on good performance on sustainability. And you know, there's no two ways about it. To get access to these premium markets, that's the bar you have to jump over.
And you're sitting far enough for me to ask you this. So who pays for the certification?
Sorry, who pays for the certification? The producer. The RSPO has a smallholder fund. We help with smallholder certification too. Some governments help, some development aid agencies help, but that can't go on forever, I think.
Yeah.
The best way to do it is to make it profitable for them to do certification. And one of the reasons why we want to do a jurisdictional certification is actually to lower the transaction cost of certification for smallholders.
Yeah.
For example, one of the requirements we have on a grower is to conduct what we call high conservation value assessment on a management unit. Now, to ask that for smallholder is a bit much. So we are now talking to the jurisdictions to do it at a landscape level, so that smallholders don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Right? And therefore, more smallholders can come on board.
That's great. Sounds like a really good step in the right direction. But
I don't have all the answers. We're just finding our way at the moment.
well, you've asked the room for help, so I'm sure you will get some people signing up to create that pull. But Nguyen, over to you. You are taking forward a lot of multi-stakeholder, multi-company initiatives, be it the Business Council for Sustainable Development, Global Compact, VCCI. How do you see the scaling up in innovation happen? How can all these people come together to really look at those kind of solutions at scale?
I think that's very important, especially for all ASEAN countries, how to multiply or scaling up the good practices. Taking for example, we have achieved great achievement in cooperation with a number of key players like SNV and other players in Vietnam to promote very good 21 or 22 business model in doing business with the poor. So we need to continue with that. We work with the government, we work with the donor, we work with the multinational corporation to continue that. One example is that tomorrow afternoon, I think 2 o'clock, tomorrow we work with one of the very active member of the Vietnam Business Council for Sustainable Development, that's Friesland Campina. We launched the project, with a square of 3 hectares in Hanam province. Friesland Campina support the farmers, small producer in the dairy country, in the dairy sector. So I think that good practice is good. We need to be enlarged, or it take a lot of I can share with you a lot of practices of the member of BBCSD like Unilever and Dow Chemical. They have strategy. They have long-term plan for sustainability. How to do business with the poor. And I think that you may know that one of the very important projects at VBCSD that we are doing now, pilotly in Vietnam, Malaysia, and Myanmar for this year, and the next year we'll be implementing in other 20 countries all over the world, is that we cooperate with Global Compact Sustainable Agriculture section to implement the sustainable agriculture. Try to help small producer and farmer with the application of the ICT to enhance their productivity in their production line. So I think that or to build up a kind of database or knowledge base for the small producers, so that to avoid the situation that sometimes the farmer or small producer has been squeezed. I mean the price is squeezed when a lot of Vietnamese agricultural products, we have to deal with that is not good for the farmer. So in the future green growth strategy of Vietnam, or the strategic orientation for sustainable development of Vietnam, the Vietnamese government has been promulgated the resolution number 19, how to enhance the environment, the business environment and the competitiveness of some of the key sector of Vietnam, including agriculture. So I think that's very important. Recently I want to share with you that we have just finished our survey on competitiveness issue in tea, rubber and coffee sector, and we found a lot of findings and recommendations to be given to different stakeholders, to the government, to the business association, and even to the small and medium-sized enterprises, including small producer. So I think that we can disseminate that finding, and we continue to keep capacity building to our small medium-sized enterprises, and continue to work with our member like Unilever and Friesland Campina to multiply the business model that good for both, for the multinational corporation and for the small medium-sized enterprise and small producer in Vietnam.
And WBCSD has just developed a social capital protocol as well, right?
Yes.
And you're testing that with your members?
It's definitely in the heart of the, we call the Action 2020 of Vietnam Business Council for Sustainable Development in particular, and of all ASEAN Business Council for Sustainable Development. So I think in the future it is our plan for the 6 Business Council for Sustainable Development in the region to sit together with the idea to set up the ASEAN Business Council for Sustainable Development. And one of the key of the highly prioritized activities to promote sustainable agriculture.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to that. I'm going to open out the floor to questions. I can see at least one. I can see a few hands. And there's one at the back, the lady at the back there. Let's start with her.
Okay,
please just introduce yourself and then
I'm Nguyen. I'm from Advisor, the third auditing company. Besides the child labor issue that we are talking in the agriculture industry, there are of course several social compliance issues, for example like minimum wage or working hours, or maybe like discrimination, or even like health and safety and environmental, blah blah. So how do we address this in the whole supply chain in the agriculture industry? And I would like to hear from you if you have any best practices to share with us, how other countries address those issues in the agriculture, especially when we know exactly like farm industry is mostly this is the family business in Vietnam and also in ASEAN countries. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a few questions. There's a lady at the back. Can we get her a mic, please?
Kavita.
Go ahead.
Hello, hi. Can you hear me?
Oh. Kavita.
Sorry. I'll take both, so it doesn't matter which order you do it in.
Hi, Anne-Marie Bruder from Forum for the Future. I thought it was an interesting question on scaling up. My organization has been doing some research with Shell Foundation over the last years, looking specifically at the building blocks that are needed to scale up solutions. And it's touched on some of the issues you've mentioned, came up with, the need for standards, the need for enabling policy environment, how technology, new solutions can enable you. But specifically at the very beginning, what you need is something worth scaling, a good idea or something that could actually scale. And if you don't have that, what you need on the other side is innovation, where is there need for new innovation? And I suppose the flip side then I'd be asking the panel is, where do you see areas where there isn't a solution yet, where we need to be more innovative in creating new solutions? Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
So that was actually good order because my question builds actually on the previous question. Thank you. I'm Annette Pencil. I'm working for the VCCI Association, which is a multi-stakeholder platform for the coffee sector and has their own baseline standard. My question goes directly to Darrel. Thank you very much for sharing the progress. And the question might be a difficult one, but what do you consider to be a critical mass in the market for sustainably certified palm oil so that it becomes a market requirement and non-sustainably sold palm oil would be punished with a price discount? Thank you.
Thank you. Let me get these three questions to the panel, and I do recognize the two people here. Thank you. So I think they were the first two questions. Well, all of them are linked. So that there's like, what is current best practice, and if we can give some few examples on things like minimum wage, working hours, environmental sustainability, and if there isn't any best practice, then where do we see the need for innovation? And then Darrel will come back specifically to your question after that. Anyone want to start, or should we just go? I mean, well, Darrel has a specific question, so we can go to him last. Do you want to just say anything about best practice, because you have a lot of
we have a lot of good practices dealing with the social impact. Here we are in Vietnam organizing 100 of training courses for small and medium enterprises, especially for the farmer and small producer in the field of occupational health and safety. Annually, we work with the Ministry of Labor, Employment and Social Affairs and a number of other international partners to deliver those training courses in the agriculture sector, and we keep continuing to do that in the years to come. And we also work with the United Nations Industrial Development in Middle, to disseminate more and more, the concept of ISO 26000, that include also and the Global Compact, the activity of the Global Compact in four, domains that have very important, social impact, like the human rights, the labor standard, anti-corruption, and environmental protection. So we annually organize the Corporate Social Responsibility Forum, and together with that we have, a lot of collaborators. We call the CSR consultant, those, our consultant network can go to the small and medium-sized enterprises and the member of the Global Compact Vietnam network to, advise how to deal with the housekeeping, how to, be enough kind of, code of conduct so that you can avoid the forced labor, the child labor, or, how to deal with the labor relation, like the working hour, and when you deal with agriculture sector like rice or coffee or and many other items, you need to notice that as some of my panelists mentioned that we are now entering in the 21st century and the urbanization is going very fast. So the key labor, the high-trained, high-skilled labor will move to the city and left, only in the rural area with the old people with the children. So we work very hard with the labor, with the UNICEF, on another principle you may own, how to protect the children, and that should be added into the 11 principle that to be added to the Global Compact, 10 principle of Global Compact in the earlier mentioned domains. So we keep doing that,
And then, so are these best practice examples captured somewhere? So if someone wanted to look for these best practice examples, could they go to your website and find them there?
Very many ways. We are organizing, training courses daily, and we are disseminating, the best practices of our members like Unilever, Friesland Campina, Dow Chemical,
So you share
in all our, daily activity, and we organize a lot of, we are focusing on key activity like, awareness raising activity, talk show, workshop, seminar, and capacity. And we are also in a collaboration with the researching body to deliver very important, research like the research as I mentioned on the competitiveness issue in some agricultural, sector in Vietnam, or international cooperation for bringing much more best practices for multinational corporation, not only 60 member VBCSD, but also from 200 members of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development to Vietnam. So like we work very closely with the Vietnamese government. We meet with the Deputy Prime Minister of Vietnam, who is the chairman of the National Council on Sustainable Development and Competitiveness Enhancement every 6 months, to report to him what we have been doing at VBCSD and to get the feedback from him on what VBCSD and other partners should do. So that's
need help,
very big, forum in Vietnam. So the small, medium size and the big corporation can share, can set up the partnership for the equal benefit for sustainable livelihood and equitable. We call equitable growth for all.
Growth. Yes, Miguel.
I want to add something to this.
Please.
At the end, what happens if tomorrow, from now on, all companies in the world will really apply all these principles on labor and human rights and everything? The world will change, literally. But how to make people or companies, owner companies, to be or to have the willingness to do that, to have the will to do that. And that's why I think it's not easy, because the companies, they look for profit, and then if they don't see direct linkage between the profitability and the actions with this, they will not do it. So that's why we work with World Business Council, and so far we have developed more than 200 inclusive business projects, in which we link the interest of the companies to be profitable with the interest and the social impact in the society. So if we link this, so the companies will do whatever they want, they need to do in order to ensure that labor laws are complied and can go beyond this. But it means that we need to look which are the business opportunity for the companies to look at this. So in this case, it's very important, and that the companies have this willingness, and also they have the knowledge and the tools to do that. And there is where organizations like us or like VCCI can support companies to do this. But also don't forget about the government. We have a lot of experiences in which the government can be the catalyzer to do that. Because we need also some policy, some framework, a legal framework to improve, to increase the willingness of the companies to do that. Because in some
cases... How do you move the base up? You can take the leaders, but how do you move the base up?
Exactly, and in this case we have some examples. For instance, here in Vietnam, we are working in the central areas, in the central of the work of the country, in the rice industry. So we are working together with the government and with companies to introducing a new technology to produce rice, which reduce water and increase the resilience of small farmers to climate change. And in this case also reduce the workload for women, which is a big issue here in Vietnam and Southeast Asia and also in the world. But also we have this kind of relationship in the south, in the Mekong area, with a pepper company, in which we engage with the local guard to work with pepper farmers, and then the company provides technology, provide the market, provide market intelligence as well, and the farmers, of course, produce and increase capacities and then produce what the market needs, but the government also give all the infrastructure and the capacity building facilities to ensure that this is happening.
Thank you. Darrel, how do you make this a market requirement?
In some markets, it already is. We are very fortunate that several countries, mostly in Europe, have already made commitments to only source sustainable palm oil by a certain date. And the question really was, what enabling policies could be made by governments? I think that's something that governments in each market have to figure out for themselves. The countries who made those commitments I mentioned made an easy decision because the stakeholders in those countries, the industries, came together and basically told government, this is what we commit to do. And government, can you endorse it? And government happily said, fine, if you want it, let's do it. Because it's a easy decision to make for government. So that's some countries. And you see a lot of people then say, well, Darrel, that's Europe. What about China? What about India? Well, not many people know this, but India and China is also changing at a speed that people don't realize how fast it is given its size. For example, both India and China has sustainability components in any company that goes out from India and China, going upstream in particular commodities like forestry or palm oil, for example. China is now drawing up a sustainability criteria for companies coming out of China, going upstream in Africa or wherever, Indonesia. And so too does India. So I think that's something that people are moving more and more in some markets. And I would like to say that in China, the awareness on sustainability and how sustainability is far more than just impacts to the local Chinese is becoming to take hold. I think the more every year I go to China, more and more I see people coming to me asking, how do I become a member? How do I ensure my supply chain? Because you see, they connect, I don't know who are the Chinese delegates here, but Chinese companies now connect sustainable supply chains with safe supply chains, with secure supply chains. That means no disruption in supply and guaranteed safety in supply, traceability in supply, because food safety is a huge issue in China.
Thank you. I took 3 women questions last time, so I'm going to go to the men this time. Yes, the person in the back there.
Hello. I think it's the time for the men to ask questions.
Yes.
My name is Eduardo Sabio. I am the representative of BECO, Belgian INGO, and we have been working in Vietnam for the past 20 years. Labor and social impact in agriculture and food is a topic interesting to me. From the discussions, apparently, that markets drive mobility of labor. And I noted, not just in Vietnam, that there are 2 trends. One is the continuing feminization of agriculture, because men usually move and migrate to work for jobs. The other trend is what I would call seniorization. If you look at the age profile of farmers today compared to 25 years ago, there's a marked difference. And with these trends, I think it is creating some vacuum in the agricultural sector, which is a threat to the sustainability of agriculture. I think if we are to think of innovation, this is an area we need to think hard how to make agriculture attractive to younger people so that they can replenish the older generation and bring in fresh blood, new thinking, but I don't see adequate movement or actions both by the public and the private. It is regarded as a new normal, and it is compensated by remittances usually by those working outside. So I think these are the realities thus far, but I think it should not be regarded as the new normal, but an opportunity to rethink the approaches in agriculture when it comes to labor and social aspects.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very important point, and we've had some comments, but please, yes.
Right, thank you, Munir Majid. I just wanted to ask members of the panel whether or not they think it is time for us to have in ASEAN, a code on decent work principles. Now, we have many of these things, and they are never enforced. And therefore, additionally, one's having a code on decent work principles to also have a kind of portal, that would then highlight violation of, workers' rights. We have a lot of history of incidents of migrant labor, refugees, and so on, whose position, is untenable. And if you just have to attend some of the ASEAN People's Forums, to see the extent of unhappiness that exists, in terms of how workers, particularly in the agricultural sector, are treated.
Thank you. If you don't mind handing the microphone over to the gentleman.
Anton Imming, Sustainable Fisheries Partnership. I want to thank Darrel for bringing in the landscape level issue. It's not, my question is not so much about labour, but much of the discussion has been, I think, around the kind of vertical issues from market down to individual farmers. But farmers do not operate in isolation, large scale or small scale. They're very much open to disease risks, to water pollution risks from their neighbours, from the surrounding environment. So a question really is, for me, wouldn't just be about engaging governments at a landscape level. I think there are real opportunities for industry associations that represent the majority of producers within an area, so that we build on that idea of public-private partnerships and this sense of collaboration that is part of this forum.
Thank you. We had one question from the lady at the back, and that's unfortunately the last one I'll be able to take because we're running out of time. So if we can get the mic to the lady at the back. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm from Women Organizing for Change in Agriculture and Natural Resource Management, and collaboration for equitable growth means women farmers as well as male farmers. Thanks very much to Kavita for raising the fact that much of the ASEAN region is in fact dominated by women and not necessarily men farmers. This is a blind spot in everybody's minds where we think the farmer is male and that he's helped out by his wife. And in fact, often it's a different reality. Thanks as well to Miguel for talking about how we need to recognize the differential that women farmers face in access to resources such as land, capital, technology, extension services. However, as I said, this is a blind spot, this feminization of agriculture that goes on and is increased as men migrate to cities and different countries. Women are the ones who stay home. If we want to make sure that there is a rural, lively community that's got strong farmers, we have to pay attention to the special needs of women farmers. Certification systems and the standards so far have also shown a blindness towards this. Many of the certification systems that have any mention of gender at all do so in such a rudimentary way that it's really not possible to track what has been the success at bringing positive outcomes to women. I think for corporations and companies, this is again a missed opportunity. Referring back to David from Unilever this morning, who talked about the competitive nature of businesses, why are we not recognizing that women in much of the developed world form 70 to 80% of the consumer decisions? Can we not think that there's an opportunity here if women as consumers know that the purchase of a particular brand or product does something to help women in a developing country? So I just throw that out there for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know there have been a number of other hands, but we do need to wrap up. But I am going to turn back to the panel. No specific direct question, but I think some reflection on the seniorization of value chains, the feminization of value chains, and the broad-based landscape lens that we need to be looking at. So I'm going to let you reflect on any of those, but also closing remarks from you three. And the one question I will add to that is, like, where do you see the biggest blind spot? What have we completely missed talking about from your experience? I'm going to start with Darrel, who's looking most perplexed.
I was really hoping to start from that end. Well, I want to do justice to the three last questions, just quickly. Tan Sri Munir, I really would like ASEAN to pick this up. I think it's very essential that ASEAN does talk about the labor rights issue, gender issue, because organizations like mine can't reach out at that scale. But the very first thing I think ASEAN member countries should do is adopt the ILO rules and guidelines. That's the very first thing you should do at the bare minimum. Second, you can clap if you want. Second, gender issues. I will be the first to admit that the standards, well, at least as far as RSPO goes, probably does not go as far as we would like on gender issues. And the reason for that is we have blind spots. And how do we address blind spots? We try to address blind spots by bringing the relevant groups into our discussions on policies. Every policy is made through a multi-stakeholder discussion. So we've got the industry in the room, environmental NGOs, social NGOs, and the whole breadth of our stakeholder groups. Unfortunately, I guess each of the 7 stakeholder groups does not have the depth of knowledge on this particular issue. So I invite you, I'm so sorry I don't remember your organization, come talk with us, and so that we can understand the issue better, because if we don't understand the issue, then we can't provide a solution. Now, on what was it?
Any last thoughts or anything that we've missed?
In this difficult journey on sustainable development, I call it difficult because the first bit of the difficulty is helping people understand what sustainable development is. I remember years ago when I talked to a very rich tauke, as they call it, a tycoon. He says, my business is very sustainable. I make millions every year for the last 25 years. I am very sustainable. So the first thing is getting people to understand what sustainable development is. That is the biggest problem or the biggest hurdle. Now, where I think now that we are already on this path, I think the expectations are sometimes too high on people. They expect perfection from the word go. And I know if you want to go mainstream, you cannot go as fast as a Ferrari. You need to go as fast as a bus. Because going as fast as a Ferrari, you carry only 1 or 2 people. A bus brings along the whole crowd. And I think you have to accept that. And the first step towards perfection is being good. We haven't been good in the agriculture sector yet. We're not there yet. We should aim for good and then go for perfect. That's all.
Thank you. Miguel, any thoughts or last?
Just to remind that at the end, this also leads to structural problems. So we talk about seniorization of the rural areas. We talk about the gender issues, and all these start with education, start with culture, start with infrastructure, and also with some legal issues. For instance, land tenure, or some realities. For instance, in Vietnam, the land is too few land, and a lot of people. In countries like in Latin America, there's a lot of land, but the parents, they don't give the land to their son until they die. So there is a lot of structural problems which affect all these issues. And of course, some progress has been made, and I think we all have very good examples, especially I think in the partnership with the BVCSD here in Vietnam, and also with the World Business Council worldwide. We have many examples in which we can show how we can develop an agriculture value chain which is taking care of labor and decent work. and taking care of all these issues that are affecting agriculture sector worldwide.
Thank you, Miguel. Vinh, anything
Last thing I would like to share with you that we are not only talking about the sustainability or sustainable development. And here we are walking the talk, the decent work principle that we have been doing ages in cooperation with ILO, try to disseminate it, into the capacity building activity, or the gender issue. Last year, just to share with you that last year we just finished our we call the Women Economic Empowerment Report. It's totally all about the 11 recommendations on the how to given condition, or how to empower the women, or how to develop the we call the women businesses in Vietnam to the government. And we are now it is our agenda to implement in cooperation with the government of Vietnam to implement our recommendation, and then we can share the best practices with more and more Vietnamese company in Vietnam. So that is I totally agree with you, the opinion that you share, that the decent work or the gender issue or the culture, that you may know that in Vietnam, we established a business association that only for the family business in Vietnam only. So that it's good when you from generation to generation try to maintain the businesses, but at the end of the day, the competitiveness or the productivity will decide. So despite all the culture issue, corporate culture like that, so that I agree with you on that very good idea. And in Vietnam we have been walking the talk. We have been implementing or turn it into the best practices of the member company.
Well, thank you.
Vietnam.
And please join me in thanking the panel. We just need to get on the bus that Darrel is driving with the best practices shared by Vinh and Miguel. So thank you very much.